Hi, everybody. It is Tuesday, November 17th. It's good to see everybody. It's been a month or more since I've been on the air. I think I told you before we were moving from Florida to Maine. We are now here in Maine. If you look up above, it looks like I'm in an attic. Yeah, that's pretty much where I am. So it made it much more difficult for me to be set up and ready to do a YouTube. And in fact, I've been trying to use a tie when doing these kinds of presentations, but I couldn't find them. They're on storage somewhere. And I found the ties, but I couldn't find the shirts. So they're in there somewhere. I have my teacher case. This presentation is about something called decoupage. Many people don't know about decoupage. I didn't know about it either, other than the fact that my mom did a lot of decoupage when I was a kid. But it's not unlike aphasia. Nobody knows anything about aphasia either. Typically, you won't know about it until you either have it yourself, had a stroke, or somebody in your family or friends do. So it continues to be difficult for people to become more aware about aphasia, never mind decoupage. But as I thought about writing an article for this month, I thought about decoupage based on what my mom had done, did, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit in terms of the way the brain works. So I happen to have, there's that thing there. That's a box with lots of stamps that were decoupaged by my mom. This is actually the real McCoy. I was looking for that for a couple of years, and talking to one of my sons, I was explaining it to him. I had him look at this as, proofing the article. And I explained it to him. He says, Dad, I think I had this little blue box that has lots of stamps on them. That was it. And it turns out it was my mom had given that to me as a gift 50 years ago. So, and it looks perfect. It looked as good as it ever did before. But in my case, since I had my stroke, as you all know, and it took me years to get better, I did get better, again, as you know, based on the practice that was quite my own. I mean, I just kept doing what my habit used to allow me to do of reading, writing, and speaking. And I did that regularly, every day, almost, for a couple of years. 11 months to become more aware, 2 years to be able to speak well, and 2 more years to be able to write well. So it took a good 5 years just to get to the point of being able to begin to do what I now do. That's not to say that I'm perfect and probably never will. Even here in this presentation, you've probably seen stumbles that I've made in terms of my ability to speak what you would otherwise call perfectly. But I can't complain about the progress that has happened with me going forward. But during those years, as I was really thinking my way through this and doing a lot of practice without yet knowing that practice was in fact highly therapeutic, that is how I got better. That is how anybody gets better, is by doing these practices every single day. So that requires a certain amount of energy, more than just a certain amount, a lot of energy to practice yourself for as long as it takes. For the most part, years for the brain to adapt using plasticity. But in my case, I also thought a lot about my past and coming up with ideas and sayings that my mom and dad and grandmother had said. And as I thought about it, I came across decoupage. I remember mom doing it, have lots of examples of that, especially this most important one, this box, and began to think about how decoupage and aphasia recovery are particularly similar. And that's because when it comes to decoupage, if you haven't ever seen that before, basically people cut out notes and things off of magazines or boxes and any number of things. They put it on whatever the surface might be, whether it be furniture or these boxes as an example, and they put them there, and then they varnish them. And when they do that, then after it dries, they will sand it, and they'll put in another coat of varnish, and they'll sand it again. And typically they will do that for 30, 40 times of sanding and painting, sanding and painting. And obviously it builds up the surface so that it's no longer stuck out as if they were just sitting there. They're actually very smooth, obviously, because you put in a huge amount of varnish that has been sanded almost at the level of the macroscopic level, such that now it's completely smooth going forward. And it ends up looking as if it was just beautiful, and it looks like inlaid work with a polished surface. So that's what the decoupage looks like. In my particular case, as I thought about that, and I had gotten lots and lots of stamps from my parents and my grandmother. They travel a lot. I had lots of those stamps, and over the years, I saved them, and my mom took a bunch of them and made that box for me. But I always remembered as a kid, and as I got older, that process that she was doing, repetition, right? Painting, sanding, over and over again, macroscopically, making it look as if it's been painted on there. And then I always thought about that going forward. Just thought it was a good metaphor for any number of things that you can bring into your life. But after my stroke, and after I got better, I began to understand the similar activity of me practicing reading, writing, speaking, basically painting, sanding, polishing my language in the same way my mom did with decoupage. And I thought about that a lot and realized that in many, many ways, it's not only very similar, and of course, metaphorically, that is very much the same, but the way the brain works, it really does require a certain amount of not only the practice, but the consolidation, the encoding that goes such that the brain concretely makes the memory and the activities become concrete in the brain, right? It becomes ingrained in the way the brain works. And it only does that by constant practice, and what they otherwise call, the scientists call, consolidation and encoding, what then becomes new bonded learning, right? So in my case, of course, I didn't know any of this before my stroke, but I also had lost a lot of my language such that I couldn't read, write, or speak well. I did get better based on the same factors that my mom did with decoupage, sanding, painting, and sanding repetitively until you finally get to a smoother finish, which is almost exactly what I had gone through with my practice after my stroke going forward. And as I was getting better, and as I began to understand that the fact that I was getting better and that I could feel the shift within me, and wrote about that, as you have seen with several others of my books, such that I actually could see learning in front of me, all of it in my brain, but to the degree that I could see it meant that the remaining cells were growing new dendrites and synapses, basically branches and trees, as if it was now learning, such that I could read, write, and speak again going forward. So it was very, very interesting to me, and I hope you'll like it too when I send this out. I'll send this out today in terms of the video and the PDF. But the fact that aphasia applies learning one coat at a time in exactly the same way as decoupage does when it comes to the sanding and painting and sanding and painting to create a smoother, whether it be language or the smooth finish of that article, whatever it might be. So thank you again. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving, and I will get another article out before the end of the year. But I do appreciate working from my attic here in Brunswick, Maine. We are happy to be here, though, for sure. And I do hope that all of you are doing well with COVID and everything else in our unstable world. All right. Nice to see everybody. Take care of yourselves. All right. See ya. Bye-bye.